Jay here for Stretford Paddock. This is Paddock Live. That is Joe Smith. And you lot, yes, you lot need to get involved in the chat and the comments because we're going to be talking about Manchester United Football Club and all the latest news that is going down there. Joseph.
Transfers.
Huge.
Yeah.
Buildings. Revamps. Rebuilds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Levelling up.
Yeah.
Yeah. All that jazz.
Northern powerhouse.
Exactly.
You know.
Talking
your
of
George Osborne's.
Northern powerhouses.
Yeah.
Who's taller, you or Sir Jim Ratcliffe?
Oh, I don't know. Rat's new nest. The rat's nest.
Wow. Okay.
Ratcliffe's new nest. It's a new flat, a new house.
Yeah.
Old Trafford.
Yeah.
Jim Ratcliffe is massive, by the way.
Yeah.
Did you see him yesterday walking alongside Sir Alex?
It looked like Sir Alex was like 4'7".
I know, and I think Sir Alex is 5'10", 5'11". He's
Yeah.
not a short bloke. I know he's a bit older, so maybe he's slightly shorter, but he's not like a short man by any means. And Ratcliffe sort of loomed and towered over him. He's got a sort of...
What do you reckon he is, Sir Jim? What do you reckon, height-wise?
I think 6'4".
What are you?
6'4". I think he might be 6'5".
Because you're not wearing any shoes and you stood in a hole at the minute.
Yeah,
So
true.
you're actually a lot taller than you look on camera.
And also, he's got that body type as well where he's sort of... He shares a body type with a wham bar. Do you know
I love
what I mean?
wham bars, mate.
It's very flat and narrow, isn't
Yeah.
it? He's got like a sort of, you know, that sort of Thomas Souček thing going on.
Do you
It's
reckon?
all a bit almost Peter Crouch-esque, but not
Yeah,
quite.
slightly ungainly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm not as much like that.
No.
Particular. Maybe a little bit, but not.
You're a
he's-
bit bulky in him, aren't you? He's a
bulky.
skinny guy in the Jim.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's doing well in the height stakes.
He is, and also he's looking to finally do something that the Glazers have been avoiding for 20 years, which is invest in or near Old Trafford. Let's get into this. Sir Jim Ratcliffe wants Manchester United to create the Wembley of the North.
Do you know what I love about that?
What?
We didn't get to Wembley this year. Yeah, we did. We're there every week, mate.
Wembley of the North.
Exactly. So you don't need to worry about the cups anymore.
Yeah.
Problem solved. He's already got us to a cup final every week. The man's a genius.
Yeah. And
Thank
also,
you.
when Great Britain hits a big iceberg and snaps in half,
Yeah.
we'll be able to host all the sort of Northern FA Cup final stuff at the Wembley of the North in Manchester.
Is that like this happened, that iceberg thing? Really? When?
2028.
Shit, I need to start saving up.
You do.
Right, go on
Ratcliffe
then.
believes that the north of England should have a world-class venue to rival London's 90,000 capacity Wembley Stadium and could yet seek to lobby the government for funds amid Westminster's levelling up pledges. Sources close to Ratcliffe said he feels that the club needs an absolute state-of-the-art, knock it out of the park, wow stadium. The dash work on this, by the way.
State of the art, knock it out of the park.
Dash work.
State of the art, knock it out of the park.
More dashes than a game of fucking hangman, that, isn't it?
Nice.
Dash. And we feel there's a strong argument for the country having a top-class major venue in the north, a Wembley of the North. Ratcliffe's arrival will guarantee an additional £237 million of initial investment for Old Trafford, according to Telegraph Sport.
This is quite the jacket, isn't it?
It's quite the jacket, the sort of green, semi-tweedy.
Just looks like someone who should have some pheasants in his hand.
A clutch
Maybe
of pheasants.
A shotgun under his arm.
Yeah.
That kind of get up.
Yeah.
What we're saying about the pun, first of
Rat's
all.
new nest. I don't mind it. I'll give it a solid 6 out of 10.
Yeah,
I think
let's
it's good,
see.
slightly above average. I don't
Comments,
mind it
let
at
us know what you think about the puns. That's the most important thing about this show.
Yeah.
What do you think of the puns? Who's responsible for Rat's new nest?
all. Ethan, that one.
Ethan James.
Well done, you're off to a fine start, kiddo. Lovely, well done. Very
Yeah.
impressed. Just on this, while we get into the comments, just on this, I do think, I mean, obviously some of the terminology being used is very FA, isn't it? It's very like the sort of thing that you would have heard, what was his name, the guy who used to be the head of the FA, who was also the head of the BBC at one point, I think.
The head of the FA was,
You know who I mean.
oh,
What's his name?
what's his
Ethan's
name?
grown in as well. Does it?
Dickie Davis?
Starts
No.
with a D. Oh, I want to. Anyway, we'll get it.
Desmond Tutu.
That's the one. It feels like he's talking about like St George's Park and the Wembley of the North and knock it out of the park, levelling up funds, all of this sort of stuff. It's got that kind of feel to it. Some of the language is a bit. Greg Dyke.
Yeah, we got
Some of
that,
the
yeah.
language is a little bit, governmental and sort of.
We need a
FA-ish
bit
and all
more
that.
blue sky thinking.
Yeah, it is.
That's what we need.
It is a bit thinking
Hey,
outside the box.
Come on.
Snackable
Yeah.
content.
I'm just going to run this up the flagpole. Let's see if anyone salutes it.
Yeah, exactly. But the idea itself, great. Fine, let's do it.
Yeah.
You know, I know that there might be some pushback, and I don't know the inner workings of what we have to do to get this government funding and what that means for United and who we owe what and who's got leverage over us going forward. And depending on how that all looks, I reserve the right to change my mind on this. But to me, a way that we can get this stadium paid for, as long as we own it, as long as Manchester United don't play in a council-owned stadium, because I do think that we should own our own stadium, especially when
Unlike some people.
Yeah, especially when we've got one that we already own.
Yeah.
A way to get some money spent on it by the government that helps the club get a new stadium without putting us in as much debt seems like a great idea to me. And this is the thing, when I said this the other day with Jim Ratcliffe, he is Britain's British man.
Richard's British man.
He is Britain's richest man.
Rah.
Right? Or Britain's second richest man, depending on whether it's...
Why? Who else is getting involved?
I think it's Oprah Winfrey.
Really?
She's right up there.
I love Oprah though, to be fair.
Me too. So he's going to have fingers in pies. He's going to have contacts in the necessary places to get this sort of thing done. Where someone like the Glazers, who have only been to Britain, by the looks of it, about 3 times in the last 20 years, aren't going to know the inner workings of how a scheme like this could work, how it could be manipulated in our favour. And I sort of like that. It's kind of local knowledge in a way, isn't it, from Ratcliffe? And I think that's quite commendable.
You can just see him getting on the phone and going, "Soon at you slag." It's the Ratmeister General. Have you got a Wembley in the North?
You got any fucking cheeks? They don't come in a rap for no reason, boy.
Hey, well, don't worry about it. We've got you covered, eh? Yeah, I can see this happening. I think that, like you say, he'll have connections.
Sunak, you old slag.
Yeah. I can see him having some connections. I can see him being able to pull a few strings. Yeah. Also, he's putting his money where his mouth is, unlike them Glazer bastards.
Yeah.
So it sounds good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does sound like we're moving forward. I've got to ask you the that's not even a thing, the $64,000 question, which I addressed this morning in my news, and which we'll get to in the comments in a minute. Do you want a revamp or a rebuild? And there's no sitting on the fence here, sunshine.
In an ideal world, give me the revamp. But if they were to come out and say, some of the, like, because I saw something today in the Telegraph where they're talking about some of the infrastructure at Old Trafford is literally 100 years old. Some of it, you can't just like gut it all out from underneath and keep all the new stuff and get rid of all the old stuff. I think some of the way that the electricity comes into the stadium, some of the old sort of stands, some of the old supporting areas of the concrete and the metalwork and all that stuff that's been, literally some of it has been there for 100 years. And if it's just sort of unchangeable, and if it could never truly be a modern sort of elite stadium unless we go somewhere else, then go somewhere else. I'm happy, as long I like that same bit of land that we've been seeing in and around that same area, so it feels like you're going to the same place. Because once the outside and the inside looks different, well, it's not the same place anyway. So as long as it's not, oh, by the way, now it's the other side of Manchester, I think I would be okay with a new stadium if that's the best way to get Old Trafford being 95, 100,000, whatever. Yeah, I'm less against it than I once was, I think. You've always been relatively keen on a new stadium, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. Listen, I get, and I always pain to say this because I understand people have an emotional attachment to Old Trafford. They don't want to see it knocked down. Whether you've been there or not, I've seen some people saying match-going fans want this. Well, I'm a match-going fan, and I want a rebuild where a lot of match-going fans don't. And some people that may never have been to Old Trafford and may never get to Old Trafford still have their right to an opinion. It's their football club and what they're watching, and there is that attachment, whether you've been there or not, to that stadium. However, for me, there's several reasons why I agree with what you said. I think, you've got bits of concrete falling on people's heads. It's not just a case of there's a slight, it needs a lick of paint. It needs gutting. It needs redoing. How realistic are we being here in terms of what we're just going to keep revamping it every sort of 5 or 10 years, whatever, until it's just completely fallen apart and we have to rebuild it completely. Yeah. I think also all your history and traditions comes with you. I think you've got a new stadium. I've been to Atletico's new stadium. I've been to Allianz Arena. I've been to a few other stadiums. You've seen, likes of Arsenal, City. Obviously, I haven't got any history anyway. But going into these new stadiums, and their history coming with them. Yeah. And I think that will, and also you could take certain things like the Munich clock or the Munich tunnel or whatever and, put the actual, artefacts back in the new one. So I don't have a problem with it. Let's not forget as well, Old Trafford's almost been completely rebuilt several times already. Yeah. It was bombed in the 40s and it was like rebuilt then, and you've had all these different stands put in, you've had to redo things. So I, for one, I'm not against the idea of a rebuild. A nice new, big 90,000 seater stadium. Where Old Trafford is, I don't want to see us move. With a lot of the old things that we used to have there, so it's recognisable as Old Trafford. And it'll always be Old Trafford, doesn't matter what happens to it and where it's built. But yeah, I think that is the way to move forward as a modern football club.
I do tend to agree with you, I think, if looking at it overall, unfortunately. Can I just tell you something that shocked me today?
Go on.
So they were talking about, to redo Old Trafford, they're looking at sort of between 800 million and $1 billion. They're the numbers that we're talking, right? To remake Old Trafford, they're looking at between 1.5 billion and 2 billion, right? You're on camera there. No, you just go in front of it again. That's twice. City Stadium, which I know isn't as big, and I know is actually 20 years old now as well. That cost them 120 million to make that. How have stadium prices gone up by like 5-10 times in 20 years? I know it's only, 40,000 when they built it, but it's mad to me that it can be that much more expensive now than that would have been back then. Absolutely ridiculous.
I think we've just got a bit of a thing here.
If you flick it off at the wall and try again.
I think the screen, it's all right, it's not the end of the world.
Look at this.
Aye.
Behind the scenes here.
Aye.
You don't get this on Sky Sports News, do you?
Anyway, whilst we're sorting that out, I'm going to go into some of the comments.
Good idea.
Bill O'Reilly. I wonder if that is the Bill O'Reilly from the, it used to be on Fox News.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
He's been a member of the Academy for 26 months. He says, "Mon the lads, looking forward to some bloody awful puns on screen tonight. We've already had one, there'll be more on the way." Yep. The Angry Jawa says, "No silver spaceship, red brick wall facade." Exactly. Petey, who's been a member of the Academy for 17 months, says, "You can't tell me that they can't create a new stadium in the same area like they did with Spurs, make it sympathetic to Old Trafford." Well, I won't tell you that. Akash Paul says, "Renovation is the only viable option. Building a new stadium will be costly unless government are paying for it. We can't sell our soul." He says he's quite emphatic there. Danny Wild, I've just gone past you. Sorry, brother, I was about to read your comment. It says, $2 billion for a 100,000 seat stadium, but 100 million plus to upgrade, redoing and more seats. Just do a stand at a time. You could do it that way.
But it's going to take like 15 years
SK
to get a stadium
says
sorted.
100k seater with like 20-30k safe standing would be immense for atmosphere. I'd love United to set the standards for stadiums and help with the area. It'd be good to see the area get a bit of a revamp, because I think that Old Trafford, I think it's one of the poorest areas in Britain. I used to live near there, so I'm not having a dig at it. But I think in terms of poverty and stuff, some of that surrounding area near Old Trafford, it could do with a bit of a revamp somehow. I don't know if a new stadium's going to do that for anyone, or if they are going to, if Sir Jim Ratcliffe has any plans for the sort of the wider area, but we shall see.
Right, what we got next? What's the next one? Come on, Ethan, you've started off pretty strongly tonight. Next story, nice one. Tyrannosaurus next.
I'm gonna give that a big thumbs up.
What's the nice one?
Yeah, Nice one.
Nice one. I think if you slice that out, you've got yourself a nice clean
I
title
agree
there.
with my colleague.
The only problem is he's got no link to dinosaurs, has he? That's the only thing, because for this to really work, you want him to have some link to a dinosaur.
But you're wrong.
Go on.
His favourite film is Jurassic Park.
Perfect.
2, The Lost World.
Here we go. Let's read this. United are targeting players entering the final year of their contracts this summer. Now, this was out of ESPN. I think it was it not Rob Dawson, this one?
Okay.
I believe it may have been. If not, it was someone else at ESPN. United have money to spend in the summer transfer window, despite concerns about breaching profit and sustainability rules. The club improved their financial situation in January by allowing a number of players, including Donny van der Beek and Jadon Sancho, to leave Trafford. A source close to ESPN has said that finances remain tight, and targeting players approaching the end of their contracts is viewed as a good way of managing their summer spend. United are exploring a number of similar deals ahead of this summer with players such as Joshua Kimmich, Jonathan David and Kefren Turam, all set to be out of contract in 2025. So crucially, that's not this summer, that's the year after this. So you're looking at people going into their final year.
Go on.
Did we ever check whether, is that Marcus Thuram's brother?
Well, yeah, let's have a look now.
I believe it is. Marcus Thuram, obviously the forward that plays for Inter Milan, top of the league, currently in Serie A. I think he's definitely got a brother who's a footballer.
Yeah. He's the son of Lillian Thuram.
Yeah, they're both Lillian Thuram's kids, and it's Marcus Thuram's
Marcus is his other son, isn't it?
Okay, right, I thought so. He's been linked with Liverpool pretty heavily. He's a sort of all-action, defensive sort of midfielder. obviously the sort of player that United, especially if Casemiro were to leave, and I don't think he's obviously not got the pedigree that Casemiro's had, but what he does have is this right here.
OGC Nice.
Who owns Nice?
Radders. Ratcliffe.
Hey. The cheese eater himself.
Hey, the lanky one. Yeah.
His royal
tallness.
Lankness. Yeah. That could certainly smooth the gears, oil the gears,
oil the gears, smooth the gears.
But it could though, couldn't it?
Yeah, no, it could. Like, he could just say, "You're selling him."
Yeah.
And Nice will go, right, Sam, we do what you say, you own us.
Shit, we didn't want to do that, but we have to.
But
if he's going to the final of his contract, what do you make of this? Mostly, to me, the main interesting thing here is this idea that we're targeting players in the final year of their contract. That sort of narrows down the pool from which you can buy from pretty heavily, doesn't it? Because let's say, on average, people sign a 5-year deal. That means that you're looking at only a fifth of the market as potential signings.
I think you could supplement some of your signings by doing that, but I don't think you should be only looking at that or mainly looking at that. Let's say you've got targets, you go, okay, we can bring in 3 targets where we spend a lot of money. A 4 target might have to cost us a little bit less, so let's get a 4 target who's going to be cheaper because he's entering the final year. But I think if you're going as that as your approach to all your transfers, like you say, you're narrowing the opportunities you can get. And also, I think your transfers should be sort of player-led, not the deal-led. It's like, who's the player we want? Who's the one that will fit into the system and work with this manager? Right, not who's got the contracts that suits us. Yeah. That, I think, is a bit of backwards thinking.
I almost think, whilst I agree with you almost entirely, I do think that United should pay a lot of attention to how much we are paying for someone.
I agree with
Not
that.
just because, and in fact, not even remotely because of how it affects our transfer budget, but because of the pressure that it puts on people. I still think if Harry Maguire had cost 40 million quid, he would just be a player at United who no one thinks should leave, probably give him a new deal like people are talking about with Lindelof. For me, it's better than Lindelof. And yeah, Victor Lindelof, everyone's like, yeah, keep him, might as well keep him, part of the squad, part of the team. Whereas Harry Maguire, 80 million, he's not worth it, he's got to go, it's a disgrace, all this stuff. And you think, well, actually, for most of his time at United, he's outperformed Victor Lindelof, who most people want to stay. Same with Anthony. If he was a 25 to 45 million pound player, you'd probably say, right, he's not the player we thought he was, but he's a decent option off the bench. I know at the minute things aren't that way, but last season he's a half decent player. He scored the winner against Barcelona. You might as well keep him around as a squad player.
Look at Amad Diallo.
Yeah.
Amad Diallo costs up to 37 million. Not 37 million, but that's with add-ons.
Yeah.
No one really has a dig at him.
No.
I know he's not had the opportunities Anthony's had, so it's not a completely fair comparison. But my point is, I see a lot of people who back Diallo, who want to see Diallo.
Love him.
No one really goes, well, he's a waste of money.
Yeah. And also, he's been here 3 years.
And he's been here 3 years.
And not done anything.
Yeah,
which
he's
is,
not really
again,
got into the first team.
Yeah.
Where Anthony has got into the first team. Obviously, he's not, he's fell off a bit of a cliff of being brutally honest.
Yeah.
But this perception towards Anthony and Diallo is night and day. Diallo's this kid who's, didn't cost too much, deserves a chance. Anthony, we overpaid, waste of money.
Yeah.
Just an absolute disaster of sort of Chelsea proportions. I'm just going to have a look here. What else? Sorry, I thought there was another comment. SK says the public money argument is being confused. Weed from the stadium and levelling up could be allocated to revamp the area. Pairing both up makes sense. Wesley Mank says Jay and Joe, Colin and Gandalf on so many levels. Bucko says you two are legends. Okay. Eccles lad in Melbourne. Oh, look at you, man. Well,
is that like Werewolf in London?
Yeah, Eccles lad in Melbourne.
Oh.
I mean, I was going to say lucky you, but I don't know why the hell you'd move to Melbourne when you live in Eccles.
No.
There's literally nothing in Melbourne that you can't get in Eccles. We've been to Melbourne. I've been to Melbourne. I've been to Eccles, and Eccles is better. And that's a fact.
Suntan?
What?
Suntan.
There's at least 4 sunbed shops in Eccles.
Fair enough.
So why would you need to get the natural sun when you can go and stand in a room and get it?
Yeah. Sun.
Yeah.
In a gun.
Yeah.
Spray tans. Eccles. Yeah.
Should we move on?
Absolutely.
From this punt, what we're giving it? In fact, we have moved on. What we're giving it?
Tony leaving, you bet. I think there's playing it safe, and I think there's cliche, and I think we are borderline on sort of overused cliche territory with this one. I think they've played it too safe here.
I think, lads, for the first time ever, it's a bit mean that. Hey. Do you know what I mean? As an addict, I can say this. as someone who's struggled with my demons, yeah, and I wear my out my sleeve, and I said, you know what, I have had the odd line of things I shouldn't have, and the odd beer too many. Taking the piss out of someone who likes to put on an acca now and again because he's got a problem, you're out of order. Yeah? We don't punch down on this channel. We punch
can call Britain's richest man a rat.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, he can handle it.
You can call one of Nice's best midfielders a dinosaur.
Yeah.
But you do not call an addict an addict.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. What are we saying about that pun though? Tony leaving you bet.
I think it's almost too easy. You know?
We're getting towards the end of these puns now, we're running out of steam.
We could almost be a sort of...
Is it like, just stick a bet pun
United
in.
accumulate Tony. Might have been better. Accumulate.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Evens.
Nice. You see, he's redeemed himself there. Nice little
I think
comeback.
it was craps. That's the type of gambling. Thomas Frank has conceded that Tony is expected to leave Brentford at the end of the season. Frank said, it's quite obvious that Ivan Toney will most likely be sold in the summer. It can be expensive to sell your best player, but on the other hand, I also know that by the summer, he'll only have a year left on his contract. Hang on a sec. Flashback to the last story. Bang! It ticks all the boxes. Back to this one. Bang! We also know what he's worth. I don't think there are many strikers in the world who are better than him right now.
Shut up.
He's a
What an absolute ridiculous statement.
Yeah, that's just provably false. Has he got one goal all season because he can't stop going on Betfred? As a coach, I would prefer to keep Tony, but one day it could be fun to see him at a top team. This winter, we actually had no bids for him, but it would surprise me if there aren't a lot of clubs interested in him. That's a sort of almost like shockingly, pardon the pun, Frank, like...
Thomas.
That's almost a shockingly frank interview that. You never see managers talking about their players basically going, yeah, you can't keep hold of him, he's gone, isn't he? I'm surprised to hear that, but it ticks the box of players with a year left on their deal in a position that we need. What is he, 28 years old, or will be certainly at the start of next season? I think he's 27 this year. We need a striker. He's Premier League proven, but not so Premier League proven that everyone's going to be outraged if he's not starting ahead of Rasmus Højlund. I think they can share the limelight pretty well. Assuming we get Europe of some description, I mean, even if we don't, you need two strikers for the Premier League. You can't expect Højlund to play every single week for a full season without any sort of knocks or arrest. I think he'd be pretty perfect. You're not so keen, are you?
I was. Remember a year ago when he got banned and I said we should get him when his ban finishes. Do you know what I'm just fed up with though? Fed up with him and his manager touting themselves.
Yeah.
And him he'd not even kicked a ball from his ban and he was going, I'm probably going to go in the summer, I want to go and win things, I want to go somewhere else. I thought, bro, get back in your team and do some bits for him first. You're still serving a ban. You're only just coming back. And then you've got his manager going, he's probably going to go in the summer. Right, we get it. He's going to go. Like, I understand, but all this sort of, he's one of the best strikers in the world, you're just overselling it, right? Teams are going to come in for him. I guarantee they will, because strikers who can score goals the way he can are in short commodity. He can take free kicks, can take penalties. Yeah. He's decent on either foot. I don't think he played particularly well against City the other night, but we can't hold that against him. He has got a good record against him. He is a very, very talented lad. And at 28, he's still young enough for someone to go, right, we'll give you a 3-year deal and we'll pay big money for you. I understand it. Yeah. I get it. But it's just boring me a bit now. Like, it's every week another Tony, Tony's made a statement. Tony's picked up a bit of the foam that he used to take free kicks and moved it and took his free kick and scored.
What a bad boy. He's moved a bit of foam.
Bore off.
Like me at an under-18s rave.
Exactly. Get your head down, score some goals, and in the summer, United won't buy you. Yeah. Because we just won't. Because Arsenal or someone will come in and just pay what they want.
Do you know the if you're a manager or you're Jim Ratcliffe or whatever, does the gambling stuff and the addiction stuff, if it is addiction, let's just take it at face value that it is. Is that something that would be a concern for you buying a player when you look at issues we've had with temperament and things like that in recent times? I know it's a different situation, but he's someone that has just served a ban for breaking the rules for 9 months or 7 months or whatever he was out for. Does that concern you at all? Or
a little bit. The thing that will concern me the most about Tony is the fact that he's not a kid. He's 28.
Yeah.
He's a man. Like, he's at the sort of his physical peak, and his maturity is probably as sort of high it's going to go. He's still at Brentford. He's just missed half a season. I feel like what's happened here is because he had such a good season last season. I wanted him. I said if we get him in January, I'd get him.
Yeah.
Like this was last year. People thought I was mad. But I think the problem is it's sort of like because there's a dearth of loads of available strikers. There isn't loads of strikers out there you can go and get who are at a club you can get them from. Like you're not going to go and get Erling Haaland from City or Salah. I know he's not a striker, but you're not going to get Salah from Liverpool.
Goal scorers, yeah.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like so, there's not many strikers who've got Premier League experience who are available, who are at a relatively decent age, and who have scored quite a lot of goals in the Premier League.
Because I'm going to say Callum Wilson, but he's older now, isn't he?
He's older. He's had injury issues.
Yeah.
Also. I don't know what's the script with Callum Wilson at Newcastle. Eve? Is he settled there? Are you going to sell him? Would you keep him?
He would go elsewhere.
You think that says more that they'd be happy to get rid of him?
I think he's 32 as well.
And he's missed like big chunks of a lot of seasons, not from gambling, from injuries. So I don't know. I feel like it's kind of become this thing where Tony's getting a little bit overrated. It's like he's, not just his manager saying he's one of the best strikers in the world. I think a lot of fans are treating him like that. Like, oh, Ivan Toney, he's just amazing. He's a good striker, and I'd have him at Old Trafford if he came, wouldn't be gutted. But I don't think he's quite as good as he's being made out. And I also think there's an element here of, let's just see where he's at the end of this season. Because he could score, I'm not saying he will, but he could score 3 more goals this season. It's quite feasible that he's got, 10 games left or 8 games left. He scores 3 goals. You go, okay, that's good. 4 goals in 8 games. Well, that's for your season, isn't it? Because you've missed a lot. And you might be looking at going, actually, I don't know. Can he come to Old Trafford and be that main striker? Or even back up to Rasmus Højlund, is he going to stomach that? Because he's the main man at Brentford. So much so that he's just had 6 months off and he's come back. And already he's taking all the free kicks and his manager's telling everyone that he's the best striker in the world. Yeah. So there's so many different things to... I know it's a long-winded answer to your question.
I think it's worth thinking about that. I do think that it's not as cut and dry for me as, perfect, if he's available, bring him in. Because he's at an age as well where if you make the right move, and I'm thinking Arsenal, Gabriel Jesus is injured all the time and a decent striker at best. Yeah. After that, they're thin up top. He could, feasibly go to Arsenal for 65, 70 million and play 45 games up front from next season. He could feasibly come to United, and only start 15, 20 games next season. Let's back up to Rasmus Højlund.
Sorry, I didn't mean to insult now, but we're beginning to see the best out of Højlund now as well, aren't we?
Yeah.
And it's like, how does that work? Are you dropping Højlund? Because they both, unless you go 4-4-2 or 3-5-2, which
we're not.
We're not.
No.
That's not going to happen, is it? I know I've spoke about this in the past, but I'd be very surprised if it happened.
Yeah.
I mean, how's that work? Is a 28-year-old going to want to come and be a reserve to a 21-year-old striker? No. Is Rasmus Højlund going to be happy if after he's come, he's finally started banging him in the Premier League, he's already got him in the Champions League, of course, he gets dropped to the bench? Because you are going to have someone who is first choice out of them two.
Especially when you look as well, I know Chelsea are absolutely stinking it up at the minute, but Chelsea could do with a striker. Arsenal could do with a striker. Tottenham could do with a striker. United need a striker, but we don't need a new starting striker necessarily.
No.
Like those teams do, especially Tottenham and Arsenal.
I don't want to keep bringing him up, but you mentioned Callum Wilson now, and producer Ethan, who's a Geordie, was saying he could probably go. He might be, someone like that might be your option. Yeah. Who comes in, plays 15 games, and he's all right with that. I'm not saying we should go and get Callum Wilson, but I mean someone who's the wrong side of 30, who's probably not expecting to come to United and be a starting striker, but can still do a job. Do you know what I mean? If he's fit and you need him, he can do your job. Yeah. And he's perfectly capable, if he played 15 games for you, of getting 6 or 7 goals. Yeah. He's not beyond his capabilities. No. So that's where we've got to be looking. I think the more I see of this and what's going on with Tony, the less I believe he'll end up at Old Trafford.
Yeah, I'm not sure he will. I tell you what though, it would be quite exciting to have 2 very good strikers. Because we've got to the point almost at United, I think, where we've been so starved of sort of strikers who either are scoring or want to be here. It's usually one or the other, isn't it? Like we had Lukaku and then he wanted to go. Zlatan, obviously, he had that big injury. And then obviously Ronaldo was scoring but didn't want to be here. It's almost like, how dare we have 2? Yeah. Whereas you think about it, I know obviously we used to play 4-4-2, but we had twice as many good strikers as striking positions in '99.
Yeah.
You know, Sheringham obviously other side of 30. Solskjaer was an excellent player, didn't get the chances, and then York and Cole. Now we've got one striker. It wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility to have two good strikers.
No.
City do it. Why can't we do it?
You're right, but I think, again, there's a hierarchy there that is accepted at City. Haaland's the main man.
Yeah.
Alvarez, young striker, brought in for £7 million, kind of knew what he was going to be doing. And in many ways, he's had more games than he probably expected because Haaland's had a bit of an injury this season.
He's been good.
And he's been very good.
Yeah,
I think you go back, everyone mentions 99. I remember 99 going into that March. We tried to sell Ollie to Spurs. He didn't want to go and said he'd become the forgotten man.
Yeah.
And it was only like that last month that Sheringham started playing. And then, obviously, we saw what happened with Ollie as well against Forest and both of them in the final and what have you. So, yeah, it is rare for you to have two strikers who firmly believe they should be the first choice. Because you mentioned Arsenal there, you've got Jesus, but he's the main guy, and Nketiah isn't. Then you've got players like Trossard and Reece Nelson who can play or slot in or whatever. But I think in terms of having two strikers, both thinking they should be the first one, I don't think any club's got that.
No.
Not any of the top clubs. I might be wrong. I can't.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I can't think of any anyway. But I understand your point. You want options, and God forbid if anything happens to Rasmus Højlund, then you've got to say you did have I'm just using Callum Wilson as an example. Say Rasmus Højlund was out for say 3 months. He got a bit of a bad injury. You rely on Callum Wilson, who's also got injury issues, and who might end up then plays.
You're in a
weeks.
Martial situation.
Yeah, and then he's injured, and then you've got Marcus Rashford down the middle again.
Yeah.
So I do get your point. It's a difficult one. SK says, I think we need to consider too many player egos. We need two because of games, options, etc. Strikers coming in need to compete. End of for me. James Barry says second choice striker at Brentford ain't bad.
Can I give you a fact?
Please do.
Speaking of rotation and having to rotate more than you think you're going to have to. Do you know the Liverpool side that sticks in your head as like their sort of quintessential? I think it's the one that won the Champions League. That Alisson, Alexander-Arnold, Van Dijk, Matip, Robertson, Fabinho, Wijnaldum, Henderson, Salah, Mane, Firmino. Do you know that side? Do you think? In my head, I saw that side play every other week.
Not because you did.
That starting 11, I think it's that exact one, started as an 11 one time ever, and it was that Champions League final against Tottenham. That's the only time that starting 11 all started together the entire time at Liverpool in the last 5 years. How mad is that?
Jeez, yeah.
I think in my head, I've seen that team play 20 games together, and that was the only time they ever started together. So someone like Toney, where you think, he's not going to get that many games with Højlund. He could probably get 25, 35, 40 games substitute. Like Harry Maguire last season played 40 games for United, and he was never first choice. And at times it felt like he didn't play for weeks, and he still made 40 apperances. So I think part of me would love to fucking get another good striker in.
Yeah, it's whether it's like I say, you've got to sell it to him as well.
Yeah.
Because if Arsenal want him, Chelsea want him, Spurs want him, whatever, and you'll come to United, and he says, okay, what about Rasmus Højlund?
Yeah.
And you go, well, he's my main man, but if anything happens to him, and he might just think, this is my last big contract.
Yeah.
Me first move to a truly big club, no disrespect to Brentford. Is he going to have it? Maybe he will. Maybe he'll believe in himself that much. He'll go, yeah, I'll come there and I'll get the first the number 9 shirt off Rasmus Højlund. He might think that. I just don't know. I just don't see it happening, to be honest with you. But let us know what you think in the comments, by all means. And would you have him? Do you think it will happen? Andy Stultz says, Liverpool linked with Mbappe, laughing emojis. Really?
They've been linked with him on and off for the last 3 or 4 years, haven't they? When they got the Nike kit sponsorship, they're like, all right, that's Mbappe. Like, who do you think you are? That's
how it works.
Yeah, like fucking R9 coming to you. No, that doesn't happen really anymore.
No.
I think Messi got helped with by Adidas for the Inter Miami deal, didn't he?
Yeah.
But wasn't there also like Apple and stuff getting involved in that? Like,
and
that's
also,
not a thing that happens all the time.
Like with him going there and Ronnie going to Saudi, and it's bigger than just that move to that club, innit? It's a whole thing of like you sort of rejuvenating that league, and everything's about you, and it becomes a real event.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if Mbappe would end up at Liverpool. Strange things have happened, but I'd be very surprised if that one did.
I honestly think
I can't see it.
Real Madrid is the only sort of, what would even be the word, kind of structure that could kind of contain what Mbappe's become. I think Real Madrid, including United, because of maybe 20 years ago or 10 years ago, I wouldn't have said this, but because of where we are, I don't think there's any other club in the world that Mbappe isn't just bigger than. Do you know what I mean? Like in terms of his pull, his money, what he'd be demanding, all the stuff at PSG. Now he's bigger than PSG. He's basically got the keys to the city there. I honestly think Real Madrid is the only club in the world that can contain what Mbappe has become. I wouldn't even want him at United. I think it would be an absolute farce, like just politically in terms of the club and the other players and stuff. I think it'd be horrible.
The good thing for you is we ain't getting him. So
Oh, thank God,
You don't have
Jay.
to worry about that. We ain't getting Mbappe. We'll be getting Cheapo Moting or who's that other like Garassi.
Yeah,
Don't you worry
Axel
about
Garassi.
that, sunshine. Right, let's go on. Let's move on to the last one. Is this the last one?
You having a Getafe?
Second last, sorry. Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, it's nice and simple. Go on, read us through it. Big man.
Mason Greenwood is on Atletico Madrid's shortlist of forwards as they are looking at potential summer targets. Greenwood, just making sure I hadn't. I was looking at as potential. Yeah, okay, it is a mistake. I just wasn't sure if I'd read it wrong. Greenwood has been on loan at Getafe in Spain this season, where he has scored 7 goals and put himself on the radar of Atletico as well as other La Liga rivals, with competition expected for the 22-year-old. He's still in contract with United for one more full season. When he signed the deal in 2021, it was announced that there was an option to extend it by a further season. His value in the transfer market is difficult to determine, given he has been allowed to leave United and will have 1 year left on his deal in the summer. Spanish media outlets have linked him with Barcelona, although their spending power has been greatly reduced. Interesting, this situation, obviously. One thing that is also interesting is this option of a further year, because I think it would look terrible for United to activate that. So it almost feels as though at the minute he's got 1 year left after this with an optional second year. I can't see a world where United go for that and activate it, because it's just like, why are you extending the contract of someone that you've decided isn't set to be at the club anymore? However, it's almost got that like Schrodinger's cat thing, hasn't it, where you're in a negotiation and we've sort of activated it and he's got 2 years left and we haven't at the same time. You can kind of use it as leverage, but you also can't. So I think it might help a little bit in terms of the transfer fee, but you can't. The PR, if United were to add an extension to Mason Greenwood's deal, would be a disaster. But at the same time, if it came down to it, we wouldn't be leaving on a free for another year, I don't think. Barcelona seem like too much of a farce at the minute. Atletico Madrid might make sense for me. I think if we could get 30, 40 million quid for him, might be asking too much. But I think, the faster it can be over and done with, the better, I say.
Yeah, I think it looks like that, doesn't it? I
Yeah.
think there's still always that little sort of niggle in the back of my mind that maybe he might come back. I don't know with this new regime. I don't know what the approach is going to be.
Yeah.
They probably will lose a lot of support if they do bring him back. You saw the backlash when it was announced or leaked that he was going to be coming back. I think this might be people putting two and two together and coming up with 5, because he had a very good game against Atletico, didn't he?
Yeah.
And Griezmann, I think, was singing his praises.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether they're saying, that's it, Atletico are in for him now. I've not seen anything else. I know it's obviously in the Telegraph, which are relatively reliable, but I don't know. I think Spanish football is a bit of a strange one at the minute. Like you say, Barcelona are a mess. We don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Don't know if Real Madrid are going to go. I'm not saying they're linked with him, but I don't know how that's going to pan out in terms of the clubs going for who. So we'll have to wait and see. But it's just messy, innit, with Mason Greenwood. The whole thing's messy and just deflating. And I honestly hate even talking about it, man. I think you're right. I think he just does need to move on and, maybe further down the line there's some sort of redemption arc, but I certainly don't think it's at Old Trafford anytime soon.
Yeah.
We'll
Also,
move
quick
on.
apology. Rereading that, I realised I put the emphasis on the wrong word, and that sentence does make sense, so sorry about that.
Right, okay.
They're looking at as potential summer targets. Right. Let's move on to the next one. What we got? Finding marvellous rash form. Finding marvellous form, I guess, is the rash form. Rashford.
Right, okay.
Finding marvellous form. Marvellous.
Oh, use that. Producer Ollie telling us what it is
So,
again.
So marvellous is meant to be a put on Marcus. So
right.
marvellous rash form instead of Marcus
Is
rash
this one of
form.
yours, Ollie?
Yes, that's one.
That's Ollie's.
I'm
he's loving it.
scared to not like it, because
Yeah,
Ollie
he'll
gets
shout at you.
angry,
He'll
doesn't
tell you off, yeah.
He does. He gets like, he starts calling you thick.
Yeah.
And so he says, no wonder you got no hair, you stupid, thick, bald bastard.
Yeah, do you remember that time he pulled your pants from
Yeah.
up your head over your head
Yeah.
and then stuffed you in your locker, didn't he, and left you there over the weekend until the head principal found you on the Monday.
Said horrible things about me kids.
Yeah. He knocked you out under the bleachers.
Yeah, under the bleachers.
Let's talk about this.
Yeah, I think that pun. Well, I can't even say the word pun, so I can't comment. I think it's okay.
I don't hate it, but it's not exciting me either.
Yeah.
Yeah, like rice pudding.
Ethan, what do you think of it?
He said
Shite says, wow. I love the ability of these lots to throw each other under the bus
They love
very
doing
quickly.
it. They love doing it.
They just love it.
They love taking each other's credit, and they love pointing the finger when
Have
someone
a bit
gets
of
a
that.
bit of
Get
stick.
reach under that bus sometime.
Absolutely unbelievable. Let's get into this then. Marcus Rashford has been told to stop partying and boozing if he wants to fulfil his full potential at United. Former United captain Gary Neville has told Rashford he cannot afford to be going on the town and warned him about the people he surrounds himself with. In quotes, we were talking about Marcus Rashford, about having that right group of people around him. You can't do the things that your friends are doing. So if you're influenced by your friends, there's that element of, oh, go on then, and oh, go on then, would have done me. I never went out in the first 5 or 6 years of my career at Manchester United. I don't think I could have done. To me, it was work ethic and love for the club. I listened, trained, and wanted to do well. These are things that are the biggest factor. Have you seen that interview with Gary Neville? I don't think it was part of the overlap. Where he says, like, they're talking about something, and he basically goes, when he left school, to focus on United, he never spoke to anyone he went to school with ever again.
Yeah, I've seen
He just
something
immediately
like that.
dropped everyone from school.
Yeah.
And Party thinks that is, first of all, odd behaviour. Like, very, very strange behaviour to be able to just drop these people that presumably you've got a relatively strong connection with. But two, fantastic to hear if you're Manchester United. If you're like, oh, you know, what's his friends like? What's his friendship group like? Because you'd want to know these things if you're the club, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I ain't got any mates. I just binned them all last week.
Yeah, I think with Neville, it's quite a unique position. His dad was quite driven, I think. Plus he had his brother, who was quite close to, who's also a footballer and both cricketers as well.
Yeah.
So there was like, and his sister's had like a England level netballer. So I think it's a very sporty family.
Yeah.
Maybe they were all like that. It's all like,
Yeah.
you know, I've seen him sort of give this interview and tell this story, and I think it gets exaggerated a bit. Or it seems to get worse. It goes from like, I barely went out, to I literally cut off everyone. I think 20 years ago when he was giving this interview, he said, I didn't really see my mates like once I left school. I was sort of just focused on football too. If they tried to say hello to me, I'd spit in their face and tell them to fuck off. Yeah. It's like, it's gone a bit like turbo on it. So maybe it's true, I don't know. But listen, I know I keep saying this with every single story. I'm kind of done with Tony, I'm kind of done with Greenwood. I'm kind of done with this Marcus thing. We know what happened. He should know what's gone down. Yeah. It wasn't acceptable. He got punished. He lost 650 bags or whatever it is. The whole British press mobilised against him. If he don't get it now, he's never going to get it. And I understand Gary Neville giving a bit of wisdom, but Marcus has got to take responsibility and just crack on, man.
Just on that, so with that, because to me, when I saw him playing the other day, and I'm not going to comment on his motivations or anything like that, I see a human being that doesn't look happy. Yeah. He looks pissed off and deflated and annoyed a lot to me when I see him play. Even games we're winning, it's like he looks annoyed on the pitch. You know what someone looks like when they're happy, don't you? He doesn't look happy to me. And let's just assume that, you know, I agree with you. Let's put this to one side. You've been fined. We've told you off. Everything's happened. If something like that were to happen again, or do you think he's on his last chance now a little bit, or do you think this is a player that we need to do everything we can to get the best out of, regardless almost of what goes on? I
don't think he's on his last chance. I think he's getting close to it though.
Yeah.
I think if he does make another big mistake, it might be then. But I think the trouble is, you say last chance, like, is that it really?
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It sounds a little bit unlikely that one more mistake and you're out. I think Marcus, it's strange because I was watching Rasmus Højlund against Newport and he lost his mind with Garnacho a couple of times. Like, screamed at him. And like, everyone was praising it. And Marcus, whenever Garnacho doesn't pass to him when he should, he never shouts at him. And he just drops his head. And that's his way of dealing with things. And I think he gets more stick for doing that than someone would for screaming at Garnacho.
Yeah,
and it's weird because I think if Marcus was screaming at Garnacho, people would be having a go at him. I think they would. I think they'd be going, look at him berating a young kid who's, you know what I mean? So I think he's a little bit, it's just the way he deals with things, and I don't think people want to it. And yet I think if he was a different way, if he was a little bit more, you know, shouty and aggressive when he didn't get the pass that he wanted, he'd get criticised.
I think
for that.
He comes across a little bit sulky at times, which people confuse with a lack of effort.
Yeah, like, that's it. And I think as well, and I'm not making an excuse for Marcus, I've said a million times about his performances this season haven't been good enough overall. But I think that sometimes if you're lacking confidence, you look like someone who can't be bothered. If you're not, like, if you're it's on you and you are like not really feeling it and nothing's coming off you and this is terrible. You look like someone who's just in a mood. And it might be a little bit of a confidence. He might be a confidence player, and I think he is. Like, he has these mad peaks and troughs, doesn't he, Marcus? Where he'll have like a purple patch. Like last season, he nearly broke, he equalled the record for the most consecutive home game scoring. Bro, he like going past Ruud van Nistelrooy and Cantona and Cole and Van Persie. Like some of the greatest players I've ever seen in my life. Bobby Charlton, and he broke all them records. I think there was one player that equals it, Dennis Violet or someone that equalled. And you're like, that's obviously a talented kid or a talented player who can do a lot and has this mad run where he does things like that. And then he'll have another run like this season where he had one Premier League goal in about 14 games, whatever it was, until recently. It's so mad. And I think a lot of it might be confidence. Yeah. I hope he can... He's had issues around playing injured and all that. Doesn't seem to be a physical injury at the minute. Mentally something doesn't look right. Yeah. And I hope we get the best out of Marcus because I still believe in him and I still think there's a player there and I hope we see it at Manchester United.
Yeah, me too. Couldn't agree more. That's what I want to see. When I say I see someone who's not happy, I want to see the happy Marcus Rashford. I want to see a human being, like not even a football thing, just a human being who I like. Yeah. I want him to be doing the best he can and to be enjoying what he's doing because it is sad to see after last season, especially with the highs he can hit, to this season it just feels particularly deflating to me.
No, I completely agree, and I think it's one of those where you can be critical of his performances and still want him to do well. Yeah. Still think there's a player there. People see it's so binary. Yeah. Like you have to think he's terrible and you want rid of him, or you have to think he's the greatest player in the world. No, you can think he's a very good player who you want to see succeed, who's having a bit of a bad spell that isn't acceptable. And I think there's little indicators that he might, I know it's only recently he was in Belfast, but he might be rediscovering his form. Yeah. His form in the Premier League in particular, he's picked up a little bit. He seems to be developing a bit of a partnership with Garnacho and with Rasmus Højlund. That front three seems to be working with him on the left, Højlund in the middle, and Garnacho on the right. So let's hopefully see the best out of all of them, especially him, over the next 2 months. Anything else, Joseph?
No, that's all from me.
I'm going to leave it there. I've put a little link in. I'm doing a little Keep You Uppy challenge for Cancer Research UK. I put a link in the chat there. Anyone who can help out with a donation. I've smashed the target that I was on, but you can always get more. You can see my stuff on Instagram. Joe, where can people find you?
Yeah, Joe Smith 93 on Instagram and Twitter and on Sloppy Joe's podcast.
Sloppy Joe's Uncensored, wasn't it?
Yeah. Sloppy Joe's Uncensored crossover yesterday.
Really? Yeah. Love that. Love a bit of that.
Great.
Go and check that out, eh? Hey, you can't go wrong with the two Joes. Joe McGrath is so funny and he's just a great guy. I love him. He carries that podcast. Well, Ethan as well, don't forget. Ethan's brilliant. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Paddock Live. That's been Joe Smith. I've been Jay Martin. Thanks for watching.